Hello guys, welcome back to yet another episode of My2Cents. I'm sorry about the absence. You should be getting like 3 or 4 new episodes today if you even care. For the two listeners that I have, I'm sorry about the absence, okay? So anyway, this will be the first of probably 3 or 4 episodes today. And I actually wanted to come back, quotation marks. I wanted to come back talking a little bit about myself. I have been doing a lot of exercise and working as an English teacher for the past 5 years. I started teaching the first time 7 years ago, but as a profession, a full time profession, really, for the past 3 years and a half. So you have these timestamps. And I remember I wanted to actually talk about family a little bit, so I will come back to my profession eventually. Alright, so family. I'm an only child. I don't know if you guys listening to this are an only child too, but being an only child sucks ass. And at least when you're little. After you grow up, it's not important. It doesn't make a difference. But when you're little, being an only child sucks ass. And I remember I wanted to have siblings so bad. And I didn't realize back then the value of being able to choose your siblings. Because listen, you cannot choose your parents, you cannot choose your family, your blood relatives are yours to have, and there is zero you can do about that. All you can do really is just not talk to them, just ignore them forever, but they still be your relatives. And I didn't have the best parents. I still don't because it's the same parents, of course. But I cannot complain of the extent that my parents always tried to give me the best education that they could afford, which wasn't much at all. But again, it was the best they could do. So I really, really, really can't complain about that. All the rest, I can and I might complain in this and other podcasts as well. But I remember when I was little, the thing I complained the most was that I wanted a brother. In fact, no, I wanted a sibling. More specifically, I wanted a little sister. I wanted a sister. I wanted a sister really, really, really bad. How bad, you ask? Listen, I don't want kids. I teach kids. I'm an English teacher. I don't want kids of my own, but I have considered in the past to have a daughter. Uh, since I cannot choose that, that's up to the whole probability game. I cannot choose whether or not I have a daughter or a son, or a healthy child for that matter. Uh, then I decided that I didn't want kids. But yeah, I have considered having kids just for the off chance of having a daughter. So when I was little, having a little sister was my dream, and it wasn't fulfilled, of course, because it wasn't my choice, it was my parents' choice. And I was an accident already. They didn't want to deal with another one. One of me was enough. And I chose another family to have my own siblings, my choice siblings. And they were three brothers. They were very important in my life. I might bring them up in the future again. And I was very, very close friends with the middle brother. I was friends with the older brother too because he was my age. The middle brother was 3 years younger than me, but our interests were the same. Like my emotional development is a little retarded. Who is close to me knows I can use this word in this case because it actually is. It is behind my own age. My emotional age is behind my own age. That's what I mean by being retarded. I think my mental age is fine, but my emotional age is certainly retarded. And when I was little, that was even more evident because being like 29 years old and having a mental age, emotional age, sorry, of a 25-year-old may not make that much of a difference. But when you are a kid and you are 10 and you have a emotional age of like 6 or 7 years old, then that's a problem. And yeah, I remember a lot of people think I was retarded, even though my grades were close to perfect for the whole duration of my school life. I still got labeled as retarded because of the way I acted. So I had no problems being very good and close friends with a guy, with a kid that was 3 years younger than me. And the older brother, in the other hand, was the opposite. He was like 5 years ahead, emotionally speaking. He was 5 years ahead. As a 10-year-old, as an 11-year-old, he was already worrying himself about girls. I think he had sex the first time when he was 12. So the man, the kid, was very advanced. I know there are kids out there that have sex as 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and that's unfortunate, really, because that's not the age to do that, and neither is 12-year-old. But he actually consented with the girl, and I knew her. I knew that she wanted it too. I knew she also wanted it. This guy was very handsome, and so was she. Anyway, I'm not gonna talk about kid sex here. Uh, I'm just saying, as a kid, I knew it was consensual for those kids, my friends, my age, to have that, I guess. Anyway, so that wasn't me at all. All that was in my head was school, books, movies, and video games. And with the middle brother, we were all in the same. We had the same interests. We played a lot of Tibia, we played a lot of Diablo, we played a lot of Mu Online, we played several other games like Winning 11. Winning 11 became, we used to call Winning 11. As a young Brazilian child, I had no idea what English, what correct pronunciation English was. As you hear me now, you still see that I still don't. You can see, sorry, that I still don't. Grammar and pronunciation here are far from perfect. But anyway, as a child, I played a lot of video games, and this kid, this middle child from another family, I really considered him my brother, you know, and my brother of choice, not a brother of blood, a brother of choice. And nowadays, I see the value in that. I see the value of choosing my siblings. I see the value of choosing my brothers. And oh man, I spent so much time with him, and with the older brother too. He wanted to get me to meet these girls, and up until I was like 12 years old, I didn't want to. I kissed my first girl when I was 13, and this kid wasn't even a virgin anymore. So we weren't in the same league. He started really young. Anyway, so time passed by, and this family actually moved out. They moved away. And they were like my escape, my little escape from the hellhole that was my house. Now, again, my parents did everything they could for my education, for my mental education, but it wasn't by chance, it wasn't just by chance that my emotional maturity was underdeveloped. I actually had reason. And I used to run to this other family, which was probably very unfortunate for their parents because they already had three mouths to feed, beyond their own. And then there's this fourth kid, very scrawny, white ginger child that was almost 100% of the time in their house. I used to even sleep there. It was crazy, man. Crazy stuff. And when they moved out, I felt left alone, which I was. I couldn't blame anybody because they were their own family. I had mine. There was nobody to blame, but I felt betrayed. There was no helping it. I just felt betrayed. And which made me start to act out. I started drinking and I started smoking as a 15-year-old. It was then that things shifted. I was really emotionally retarded until I started to just drink and smoke. Up until the time I was like 20-year-old, already in college. I had the health and the mind of a 40-year-old man, and the health, especially the health. And I played soccer and basketball and almost professionally handball for several years of my youth, from being an 11-year-old child up until my last year of high school, up until my senior year. I did a lot of sports. So when I left high school, when I finished it and I got into college, my health actually started to decrease exponentially because I all of a sudden stopped doing sports and increased my smoke and alcohol intake. So my nicotine and alcohol intake. I started to smoke even more. I started to drink even more. I was drinking even outside of parties and meetups. I was just drinking by myself when my parents weren't home. It got ugly, guys. Trust me, it got really, really bad for a long time. And actually, it started when I was 15 years old, up until I was like 22, maybe 23 years old. And yeah, I just felt left alone. And it took me such a long time to realize that being alone is not the end of the world, that actually feeling shitty, feeling alone, and feeling depressed is part of life. It took me a long time to realize that. But it was good that eventually I did. I do understand that a lot of people go through life without actually making this realization. People are always running away from just being alone. And that wasn't me. That wasn't me. I wasn't running away. I was just feeling shitty because of it. You can say that drinking is a way of running away from it, but that's not how I see it. I was actually just doing that so I could think differently. I never smoked. Actually, I smoked pot twice, but was never really a thing in my life. But I remember when I was drinking, I could reflect on myself better. I don't know if that was true or if it was just a lie that I told myself. But anyway, so the whole thing is pretty shitty, right? Just a young adult, starting as a teenager until up to the point I was a young adult, just drinking and smoking and not caring for myself or about myself or anybody else really. I had no empathy for a long time. And I up until 2014 it was like that until it stopped. I started doing yoga, I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, and so my life was always changing a lot. Always these abrupt curves that I would have to adapt, and so would people around me. My parents, like I said, weren't the best parents in the world, but I don't think I was the best son in the world as well. I was an accident. They made sure several times to let me know that. I'm not telling you this so you feel bad for me. It's just the reality of my situation. And again, I wanted a little sister, I wanted siblings, I never had them. But by being alone for so long, I realized that my real brothers are the ones that I choose. And actually, when I was 11 years old, I made another friend that is still my friend today. I still talk to him. In fact, yesterday I was talking to him. And another idiot that is also my friend for almost 20 years. I met just 2 years after that. So these two idiots are my closest friends in the world. They are my siblings. They are my family of choice, my siblings of choice. And why am I telling you this? It's because since I was always alone, no siblings, and no close connection with my parents or anyone else in my family for that effect, I learned how to make connections to other people quite easily. I'm not saying that I learned how to have casual relationships and casual sex all the time. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I actually can just talk to people randomly, even though I'm a very shy person. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is that I get more used to exposing myself. I'm really, really, really shy, but I don't let that stop me. I always talk to people. I always try to get people involved with me, with my life, and I want to understand what's happening to their life as well. So this whole childhood, teenage years, young adult situation and history actually helped mold who I am today and how I operate today as an English teacher, and how I try to do with my students, how I try to deal with these different situations, and obviously how I also try to deal with relationships, close relationships. There's a lot of shitty situations out there. I've met nice people, I've met people that seemed nice and are not very nice when you get to know them. And with time, I wasn't like that 10 years ago, but with time, I became very patient because I understand that my expectations, it's my own problem. I cannot project my expectations of the other person on the other person. This is all me. I also understand by reading Robert Johnson, for example, that I have both sides, my anima and my animus, inside my body are into effect all day, every day of every week, of every month, of every year, and so on and so forth. So I started to understand what my mind and emotions wanted based on the books I've read. And just telling you a little bit about my mother, she's a psychologist. So she's been reading about psychology for like almost 40 years now. She's an old woman, she's 66 years old. And she's actually very well successful. She's very successful in her field, to be honest. Both in money and realizations, articles, books, talks. She's pretty good, pretty good. And for the most part of my adult life, I helped her with articles and books and interviews and whatever you think that exists regarding psychology, regarding Gestalt, and regarding some specifics like narcissists and psychopaths. I had to study in English in order to explain for her in Portuguese because she doesn't know English, and I've been fluent in English since I was like 18 years old. And I had friends that were fluent since they were 10. All right, 10, 11. I actually had friends who knew how to speak Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And by the time they were 15, they already knew French. So yeah, I'm not them. It took me a while, but yeah, since I know English, I've been helping my mother. So I've been reading a lot of psychology books and articles. I've been watching a lot of lectures and interviews, and I put that all in my life. I don't, since I'm not a professional of that area, I don't care too much about the terms themselves. But again, the loneliness and these type of studies helped me understand very well who I am and what I want. And these, my friends, are the whole, how can I say, these topics are the base of today's podcast. I know it took me almost 20 minutes to get here, but hear me out, alright? Knowing thyself, knowing who you are, is the most important thing ever. Doesn't matter if you're going to make professional decisions, family decisions, it doesn't matter what it is. If you know what you want, who you are and what you want, um, not only your decisions are going to be better and better, you're going to stop regretting things. You're going to stop regret what you did because you're going to understand who you are, and you're going to understand better why you did what you did. So regrets start to be a thing of the past. Good decisions start to happen more and more. And the only way for you to do that is by feeling shitty. You should feel shitty. Maybe if the girl or the boy of your dreams break up with you, or they didn't hold up to your expectations, you're feeling frustrated and you feel alone, just let it in, you know? Just feel alone, feel shitty. You should feel shitty. There's a take from Louis C.K. Stand Up. I forgot. I think this one he did back in 2015. I'm not sure. I should remember. But anyway, Louis C.K. said that he was feeling shitty, and he was talking about the fact that he didn't give his daughters a cell phone. So he was explaining the importance of not having a cell phone at all times, especially when you are a kid, when you are developing. And he was giving an example of himself, how he was like walking down the road, just riding his car, and then all of a sudden he felt the need of human contact. He felt the need to send people messages and everything, and he didn't. All right, he was stronger than this impulse. He parked his car and he started to cry. I don't know, I don't remember actually how long he did that, but he parked his car, started to cry his eyes out, and by the moment he stopped, he knew himself a little better, and for that he felt a lot better. I know it's weird, but honestly, if you use your phone all day, if you're on the computer all day, and you don't take time for yourself, and you don't think and you don't reflect on your life and your actions, it will be very difficult for you to feel fulfilled. All right, this is what I believe anyway. I think in order for you to feel fulfilled, you need to realize that there are things in life that suck. I had a student. Hopefully, she'll listen to this. She'll listen to this podcast one day. I had a student that was my student for a few years, for like 2 years, up until the point she got diagnosed with cancer. And I remember, I could be wrong. If she ever listens to this podcast, obviously I'm not gonna tell any names, because she might not be okay with the fact that I'm talking about her. So I'm not at liberty of telling the name. But I think, again, she could correct me on this, but I think up until that point she believed that every action she did had a reaction. So if she was which is true in a way, but you don't control that. And I think she used to believe that she did, in a sense that if she has good actions, she will only get good reactions, you know? So obviously that isn't true. You doing good actions should make for a good reputation at the very least, but it doesn't mean that good things will happen to you, not at all. One of my oldest friends is a pretty shitty person. I'm not saying I'm a saint, but he's pretty shitty. And all the good things ever happened to him. I don't remember anything really bad happening to him. Besides some childhood traumas that I remember he had. So his whole life is just basically him being really lucky, and he's not a very good person. He's not a very good person. I don't think he is anyway. So, this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about family. I didn't want to make this very boring, and the whole reason I'm talking about family has to do with profession. Your profession has to do with who you are as a person. It has to do with philosophy, obviously. I could talk a little bit about Rousseau, even though I'm not an expert. Rousseau talks about how family works in society and the influences of society, not only the influences of society, not only in the individual but also in the family, how it dictates in each family, how society goes about on that, and how that further relates to politics and social issues and all that. But again, I'm not an expert, so I'm not gonna bore you guys any further with this topic. I actually really enjoy talking about relationships. So today I just took the first 67% of the podcast to talk about that. Hopefully it was somehow helpful. I don't know if you guys agree with what I said, that knowing thyself really helps you figure out what the fuck do you want and what you're doing. And at least personally, it really helped me with regret. Regret is rarely present in my life nowadays, even when I make a very shitty decision, because obviously it happens. When something really shitty happens to me because of a shitty decision, or even if I wasn't at play there, it wasn't my fault, it was just a shitty thing. Like, two things happened with neighbors, because I have good neighbors. I'm pretty lucky with neighbors. I've been living here where I live for 3 years. But I had two instances that bothered me a little bit. One of them, my neighbor puked from anywhere upstairs where I live, and I saw that he tried to avoid all the windows below him. But I have an AC that has like a box that protects the AC from vomit, apparently, and just a fraction of it spilled on this box. And oh man, it's so disgusting. And I remember when this happened, I was like, what the fuck? I wanted to kill the person. Oh, it's 10 dudes, 10 buffy dudes living. I didn't care. I would buy a gun and kill all of them that's that's what my impulse was. I really wanted to just get done with it, but I didn't. I knew myself. I knew that anger would go away, and I just talked to the super, and the super dealt with it. You know, they cleaned it. Not the neighbors, but the building cleaned it. I cleaned my window because I didn't want anyone in my house. So I cleaned my window. They cleaned the common area of the building, and that was that. They had to pay a fine, which is only fair. But anyway, I also remember I had also an upstairs neighbor that had just installed his AC, and his AC was dripping here on my box. So every day I had to deal with, every time going to bed, it was like every day, every single day for like 2 or 3 hours. And it fucked my sleeping schedule. And I usually start to give classes really early. So, man, that wouldn't do. I had to call the super again. Again, I have to be thankful because I have a very good and efficient super. She just gets shit done. She just gets shit done with no drama. Like, hey, the guy is dripping his AC on my window. She's like, alright, I'm gonna talk to him. And 2 days later, it's gone forever. I never had a problem with that again. And when I talked about the vomit, I'm friend with the guys who take care of the building here, the doorman, the guy who cleans, the girl who cleans. Like, there's a few employees. It's a very old building, so we still have a lot of employees, and they are really helpful. They are really friendly. The super really helps. Like, I have nothing to complain, and I also don't have anything to complain about my neighbors. You know, they're fine. Both instances weren't on purpose. You know, the case in point, it never happened again. But knowing who I am and how angry I get with stupid things, how easily I just let things go when the anger is over, I knew that I didn't actually had to do anything. My anger would go away. So imagine if I had done something. Imagine if when the vomit was spilled, when I woke up and I saw that, it was just a little bit, right? It was not a puddle of vomit in my window. It was just in the outside box. There was like a spill, just just a very small, like a tenth, maybe even less of the vomit. But it is disgusting. It is annoying, and my feeling at the time was just to go over there and kill everybody or the person involved anyway. Which, but I didn't, and I knew that it would go away, which it did. Nowadays, I remember about the story with some humor, you know. Of course, if it happens again, I'm gonna be mad again, but knowing myself, all I have to do is let it go. And I wonder, you guys can write here on the comments, of course, if you guys ever had something like that happen to you, like some really shitty thing regarding a neighbor or friends or a family member or someone you're dating, and you felt really angry at the time, but you know yourself well enough to think, hey, listen, me, just shut the fuck up. Just keep it to yourself. That this anger will go away. And I'm not saying be a cuckold about it. You know, I'm not saying don't do anything. You should certainly do stuff about it. If it made you mad, you cannot just simply let it go. But doing that strategically and with a cold-headed mind, with a leveled mind, is certainly the best choice. You know. So what I did with both cases was talk to the super, and it worked. And if it didn't, I would have to solve it some other way, maybe talk directly to my neighbor, and I would certainly do that because when I lived with my parents, I was the one talking to the neighbors. You know, I'm not annoying, but listen, if the guy is throwing shit at your window, you know, maybe some cigarette ashes or water or spit or whatever disgusting thing it is. Oh, my parents' apartment complex was really bad. Like, I really have nothing to complain nowadays because my parents' apartment complex was a lot worse. But yeah, like, I was the one who would actually go over to the neighbor's house and complain because my parents' super was worthless. He didn't help at all. So anyway, now I'm just ranting about neighbors and shitty neighbors and stuff like that. So This is it for today, guys. Very personal stuff, I believe. Just a regular 30-minute podcast. Hopefully, you had fun listening to it. If you didn't listen to the whole thing, you didn't miss much. And thank you for tuning in. You guys have a wonderful week. And that's it. Those were my 2 cents on family, friends, some relationship with your neighbors, and maybe romantic relationships as well. That's it, guys.